Hi everyone, I'm Shelly and you're watching There's No Place Like Home. Every time that I think that I'm done making videos about the thousand-year reign and the short season, something else falls into my lap. I actually had a very interesting article sent to me on Twitter, and I'm going to share that with you today because we're going to talk about the short season, preterism, and Jesus in the clouds. So this is actually a picture from Gallica. The very first place that I ever saw this was on the Autodidactic channel, so Campbell. Um, and he was going through some photos. I believe this was the Battle of Rome. And as he was going through them, I noticed this right here. And to me, this really reminded me of Jesus coming back in the clouds, like the book of Revelation tells us will happen. And so I did talk about the possibility that the events that are written of in the book of Revelation actually already happened in the past. Now, this isn't something that I am saying that I know for certain. At this point in time, I see a lot of things happening that are written about in the book of Revelation. And so to me, it means that, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Is it a futurist view of the book of Revelation, or is it more of a historical view of the book of Revelation? I don't know. And I don't believe that it is a gospel issue. And I'm certainly not going to tell anyone which way they should feel because I don't even know what I think about all this. But I do think that there are some very interesting things that have to do with the historical view of the book of Revelation. And I always find when we find artwork like this that depicts what certainly looks like what I would say to be Jesus in the clouds. As a Christian, that's how I see it. And yeah, so I did talk about this in one of my other videos. And so someone just sent me this article here. And it says Jesus, the Son of Man, was literally seen in the clouds in AD 66. And I have to tell you that I always link my Question the Narrative playlist in the description box. I have several videos on the thousand-year reign, the short season. Some places I called it Tartaria, and I've actually stopped calling it Tartaria just because it has been pointed out to me by someone. His name is Logan. I think that's how you say that. He also has a channel. And we need to remember that Tartarus was the place where the angels were bound. And so for me to call the kingdom that Christ ruled for the thousand-year reigns, to call that Tartaria, that makes me uncomfortable. So anyway, I'm kind of like moving off track here. So in some of those videos, I actually talked about the evidence given where a lot of what we see as futuristic prophecies may have already been fulfilled back around the time of AD 70 when Nero was actually in control. And we have to remember that our timeline is very likely off. A lot of the things that we're told happened at certain times, we can't really go by what they tell us, because if you're watching this video, you are already likely questioning the narrative, which is what we all really need to do, because we're seeing in real time how things are being changed. So imagine how they changed things that happened, hundreds of years ago, even thousands of years ago. We need to question these things. So anyway, getting back to that, someone sent me this, and it actually has some sources where it was written about that Jesus, the Son of Man, was literally seen in the clouds in AD 66. Now, I have to tell you that a lot of times people will look at these things and they'll say, well, that's just, the Christians of that time probably documented this because they wanted, to make their, quote, story seem believable. But the fact is, as we're going to see, that the people who wrote about this were not Christians. So anyway, let's just read a little bit. I'm not going to read the whole article just because it is very long, like you'll see here. Very, very long. If you hear that sound, my neighbor is taking a shower, it sounds like, and it's always loud over here in my living room. But anyway, let's just read a little bit of it. I will leave a link to this in the description box just in case you want to look through it. It is very detailed. There are a lot of footnotes. I do not agree with everything that is on this website. I have to say, first of all, that it is a preterist website. I am not a preterist. I will go over with you what preterism is. I will at least read to you what they say preterism is, because I am certainly no expert on it. But I will say 100% that I am not a preterist. And I will explain why that is when we actually take a look at this here. But anyway, let's read this, because this is indeed very interesting. Preterism and the parousia, I don't know if I'm saying that, you will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven. In Mark 14:61-62 and John 21:22-23, Jesus declares that the high priest Caiaphas and the apostle John will live to see the second coming. So let's just look right here. In Mark 14:61-62, Jesus declares that the high priest who delivered him over to the Romans for execution will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven. Then in John 21:22 and 23, Jesus says that the apostle John will remain alive until his return. Jesus also promised to return within his generation. I know there is a lot of debate over what that actually means, within his generation, but this article is referring to his generation as being within the generation of Jesus, the people who were alive at that time. Again, I'm no expert. I am just presenting information to you, and I am certainly not telling you what to believe, because again, this is something that I'm really on the fence about, and I just find it interesting. Anyway, Jesus also promised to return within his generation in Matthew 16:27-28, Matthew 24, and Mark 8:38 to 9:1. Because of statements like these, the disciples all believed that Jesus would return within many of their lifetimes. And here it says the second coming is described in detail in Revelation 19:11-14. Here, Jesus rides a white horse, leading an army of angels on horseback in the clouds. So this is an artistic depiction of the second coming. Imagine seeing that someday. That would be pretty awesome. I think terrifying, though, at the same time, because you know what's coming for the people around you. An eerily similar event is recorded to have occurred in the year of AD 66, at the start of the worst war in Israel's history, Israel's war with Rome. And again, these things, they are footnoted, so I'll just click on this here to show you. This is from Josephus, The Wars of the Jews. And so if you do want to look into these things yourself, I certainly don't have time to look into all the footnotes here on this video today, but you can do that if you click on this article. But I'll just read what it says here. On the 21st day of the month of Artemisius, a certain prodigious and incredible phenomenon appeared. I suppose the account of it would seem to be a fable, were it not related by those that saw it, and were not the events that followed it of so considerable a nature as to deserve such signals. For before sunsetting, chariots and troops of soldiers in their armor were seen running about among the clouds and surrounding of cities. Josephus was not a Christian. We need to really reiterate that. Josephus was a Jewish historian. So the first century Jewish historian, like I just said, Josephus, describes a heavenly army in the clouds, much like the army Jesus leads in Revelation 19:11-14. This event is also recorded by other historians. The first century pagan historian Tacitus also mentions this event. In the sky appeared a vision of armies in conflict, of glittering armor. A lot of this stuff I can't even pronounce, but Hegesippus, I know I really butchered that, also describes the coming of Christ on the clouds with his mighty angels at that time when he writes, a certain figure appeared of tremendous size, which many saw, just as the books of the Jews have disclosed. And before the setting of the sun, there were suddenly seen in the clouds chariots in the clouds and armed battle arrays, by which the cities of all, I'm thinking that is Judah. I'm actually not even sure. Iudea. I'm sure that someone will correct me, so if you know what that means, let me know. And its territories were invaded. Actually, I want to see what that is. So let's just highlight this, and I'm going to go see. Okay, so Judea was a Roman province which incorporated the regions of Judea, Samaria, and Idumea. I probably said that wrong too. So I was close. It wasn't the Judea that I was actually thinking of, but it is Judea there. Anyway. So The medieval Jewish historian Sefer Yosipon expounds upon this angelic army in the sky of AD 66 by saying, "Moreover, in those days were seen chariots of fire and horsemen, a great force flying across the sky near to the ground, coming against Jerusalem and all the land of Judah, all of them horses of fire and riders of fire." The parallels between these three accounts in Revelation 19 are striking. However, in Yosipon's account, one can see how 2 Thessalonians 1:7 was explicitly and literally fulfilled in AD 66. This will happen when the Lord Jesus is revealed from heaven in blazing fire with his powerful angels. So to me, these accounts, if true, they really do seem to give good evidence, or at least witness testimony, that Jesus may have already returned, as a lot of people do believe. The coming of Christ in the presence of fiery angels riding horses and chariots, recorded in AD 66 and predicted in 2 Thessalonians, mirrors the coming of the Lord in Isaiah 66:15 in a surprisingly literal way. "For behold, the Lord will come in fire, and his chariots like the whirlwind, to render his anger with fury, and his rebuke with flames of fire." Now, again, I'm not going to read through the entire article. I just wanted to present this to you to show you that, yes, there are historical accounts of what, and the thing is that it actually says this later on in this article, that they don't ever expressly, well, they don't ever refer to him as Jesus, because remember, these are historians, and they have no interest in pushing, the Christian narrative or the Christian beliefs, but they are saying that they're describing what is described in the Bible. And just because they don't come out and say that it was Jesus Christ certainly doesn't mean that it wasn't him. And that's something that I think we need to look at. But again, very, very interesting article, very detailed. Let's get into preterism, though, because preterism really is not. Here, we'll go on what we believe. Okay. We believe in one God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. We believe that Jesus Christ was born of a virgin, died for our sins, and was resurrected from the dead. We're just actually going to go down to the place. Actually, most of this does have to do with what I'm talking about. I can't even think to speak today. As stated in Romans 10:9-10, James 2:14-24, and Luke 10:25-28, we believe that salvation comes through saving faith, belief in Christ, and love of God and others. We believe, as predicted in Mark, John, Matthew, and Mark again, that Jesus did come on the clouds in his generation as he promised, and that this coming was more than just apocalyptic rhetoric. We believe that Jesus came visibly on the clouds in judgment at the start of the Jewish war, as suggested in Josephus, The Wars of the Jews, and Tacitus, The Histories. We believe that natural and supernatural events found in Roman historical records confirm that every end-time prophecy was fulfilled in and around the time of Israel's war with Rome in the 1st century. We believe that Jesus Christ is seated at the right hand of the Father, where he rules the world from a heavenly throne. We believe that this is the Messianic kingdom, and that is where I really, really differ with the preterist view. We believe in a literal 1,000-year reign, denoting the 1,000 years in which Israel grew to become an almost exclusively Christian nation between the Jewish war and the Crusades. We believe that the end of the age mirrors the beginning, and that this implies that the earth is very old. And I also, that's something that I am more of a new earth thinker, but this isn't really something that I have thought about very, very often, but I can 100% say that I do not believe that we are living in the Messianic kingdom right now. Because if we look over to what the Messianic kingdom is, it tells us that In the book of Revelation, chapter 21, we are told that there will be a new heaven and a new earth. We are also told that this will be the final and eternal state after the 1,000 years. Messianic kingdom has finished and the final overthrow of Satan and those following him has occurred. Everything in the universe, including the earth, will be completely new. In this eternal state of all things, death and sickness and old age will have been completely eliminated. The first heaven and earth will have passed away, and there will no longer be any sea because all will be perfect and new, and territorial boundaries will no longer exist. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things, the original heavens and earth, will have passed away. Also, death and Hades will have already been thrown into the fire. So, I do not believe that we are living in the 1,000-year reign of Christ right now. Because if we were living in the 1,000-year reign of Christ right now, I do not, well, no, we would not have all of the clearly demonic things that are going on in the world all around us. I believe that during the 1,000-year reign that people will sin because we're sinners. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, Romans 3:23. But I do believe that Jesus will be in charge, literally, physically in charge during those 1,000 years. And so I don't believe that we are living in that time right now. I do believe that if the book of Revelation has already happened, and again, I have said this in many other videos, I am on the fence about this. And I'm praying for God to give me discernment on this matter. Again, I do not consider this to be a salvation issue at all, because Revelation 20 tells us that there is going to be a short season where Satan is loosed again. And obviously there will be people living during that time. Whether they actually know that they're living during that time, I don't know. Could we be living by that time now? Possibly. These are all questions that I have. But what I do believe is that during the 1,000-year reign, that if Jesus is here physically on earth ruling over everything, things are going to look a lot different than they are now. And when we take a look, we always look, I typed in Tartarian architecture just because that's usually what these buildings are called. But what we see is that although we are told that we are like at the pinnacle of human development right now, if we look at things like architecture and music and art, it certainly seems like we have actually fallen behind, and that there is something very wrong when we are told that very primitive people with horse and buggies were able to build buildings like this all over the world. I mean, not all over the world. These weren't rarities. They were seen everywhere. And yet we have pretty despicable looking architecture now when we are living in this supposedly technologically advanced society. And so I do believe that if Jesus, when he is here, if he already came and ruled for those 1,000 years, again, I don't know, but when he is here, I do believe that it will be a time of more technological advancement, because you will not have the demonic influence hindering you. Again, yes, there will be sin, but not like what we're seeing today. So you might be wondering, if I think that it's possible that it already happened, but I'm not 100% sure, and if I don't believe that we're living in the 1,000-year reign, well, you might be wondering, when do I think that it's possible that we could be? If it is anything at all, if Revelation is not futurist, if it is in the past, I believe that the only time that we could be right now is in the 1,000 years, or sorry, after the 1,000 years. And we'll read this right here in Revelation 20. And he seized the dragon, that ancient serpent who is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. So that would be the 1,000-year reign, where yes, you would see a more advanced civilized society, like that of what we're shown. So again, we're shown things like this, and we're made to believe that these things were built by a primitive people and that we are far more advanced than them. But take a look around you. There's something very off about that narrative. These These are not the sorts of things that you would see in a primitive society. We look far more primitive now than what they did then. But again, if Jesus Christ had already ruled for the 1,000-year reign and that we were in the short season, they would definitely want to hide that from us. They would definitely want to hide the advancement that we experienced during that time. So anyway, they threw him into the pit and shut it and sealed it over him so that he might not deceive the nations any longer until the 1,000 years were ended. After that, he must be released for a little while. So we don't know how long a little while is. But what we do know, if we go further down, that it elaborates just a tiny bit. And the book of Revelation, it does not tell us a whole lot about that time period. But what it does tell us is that, and when the 1,000 years are ended, Satan will be released from his prison, and he will come out to deceive the nations that are at the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them for battle. Their number is like the sand of the sea. So to deceive the nation, we already know that Satan is a deceiver. Take a look around us at the things that are happening right now. I know that there are a lot of times that generations will say that they've never seen anything like this before, but I'm going to say that, and I think that this is the truth. We have never seen the amount of demonic activity going on around us than we've never seen this. Like, it's insane. And I also have to say, and some people have pointed this out, that if Satan would want us to believe that Jesus had not come back yet, if he would want to deceive us about that, then he would do everything in his power to do that. And again, he has come out to deceive the nations. So what does that mean? If Satan is released from his prison and he comes out to deceive the nations, that means there are going to be people there during that time for him to deceive. Correct? So we can take a look around us. There are a lot of people who have fallen hook, line, and sinker for the deception that is going on around us. So really, I have to point this out again. There has to be people alive during this time for him to deceive. The question is, will they know it? I don't know. But I think that it's certainly something to think about. And I think that looking at articles like this, telling us about on the wrong one. Looking back on the historical accounts during that time, and not just one, there are several of heavenly armies in the sky in AD 66. And again, a lot of people believe that a lot of the events that were written about in the book of Revelation, a lot of people are guessing around AD 70. It's hard to describe because, again, our timeline is so messed up. And the Battle of Rome that I showed here, this actually happened a few hundred years after AD 70. I believe this was in, I think in the 6th century, possibly. So I don't go a whole lot by the timelines, but I am questioning what this all means for us. And so people have asked me, what does that mean for us? If we are living in the short season, does it mean that it is too late for us? And I don't believe that there is ever a time that it is too late. I believe that if we are living in the short season, if we have the love of Christ, it is still our job to spread the gospel and to let other people know that it is only through Christ that you will be saved. And I know I'm probably going to lose a lot of subscribers by saying these things, but that's not what matters to me. What matters is that the truth would be put forth. And I think that if we are living during the short season, yes, time is definitely short. That's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one either here or over on Instagram. And if you like my work and would like to check out my Patreon page, I will leave a link in the description box for that as well. And I hope you have a great day.